Hi everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the post-moon. I was going to say post-eclipse, apocalypse, which I've said before, but actually it's the post-supermoon apocalypse, the revealing of what that was all about. And OMG, I don't know how you've been feeling, but I have been in 5 days of terror, like since the snake on Valentine's Day. It has just sent me into a place of needing to shed a skin, a fear skin, and you'll hear all of this in the prayer today, and to have an epiphany like I can't remember the last time I had one that was this deep, but it's all been culminating through the co-creation success work as well. Hi Rochelle, welcome. And I want to get this down somewhere that it's documented, because in the early hours of the morning for me here, I was getting a whole load of information from the moon about what's been triggered in me and why this fear, this original deep fear within me has occurred. So it might be a bit longer than usual, but it will explain everything. So I'm going to just go into the prayer first, and then I'll kind of dissect it and give you what's going on. So just to give you a sense of how I'm going to title this video when I put it back out there again, what have I come out with? Oh, she has these ideas, she puts them down places, she can't remember where they are. Where is it? Maybe I'm not meant to show it yet. That's okay, it will come up. I will let you know what the name is, but yeah, it's quite amusing really. So, good afternoon, diamonds. How do I get out of a sphere of fear? Sometimes you just have to pop it with a needle to make it disappear. The needle of determination gets straight to the point. To get under the skin of the snakes we perceive lie within us and cause us to feel deceived. All the time we allow their poison to wriggle within. We succumb to our own fears and misperceptions of sin. This is important. And of what is real in a paradigm of pain and toil, created by design, to bring us all eventually back into union consciousness with the divine. All that is needed to make the switch is to let go of the idea we must be punished for our sins, to remember we have done nothing wrong, but the desire to understand causes suffering. No need to know, just to feel safe within. I am shedding my fear skin. I am safe in my power. I am that I am. Now bear in mind this got written in 3 stages, and I have to thank and big up Ian Buzz Hannis, aka Aquaman, aka Builder of My Dreams, because he was very instrumental in a very big shift in me this morning, and actually more than that, he came up with the origins of this poem last night, this prayer last night. So we were talking, because this is where it all goes, right? So humour me. Hello Bunty, welcome. Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day for lovers, traditionally, right? Flipping see a snake going into the bushes, right? I've lived 2 weeks in paradise, been loving it, just in awe, like, everything's amazing, I love it here. And of course there's that back story that is, you're in paradise, are you? Huh? You know there's always trouble in paradise. You know that all that glitters isn't gold. You know that things are too good for them to last. All that old stuff, right? The old stories. See the snake. About that much of a snake. And that was like at least, I reckon, half of it. Me, irrational fear, you could say. Personally, I don't think it's irrational. Keeps you alive. Fear of snakes, definitely like on the fearlessness scale of all the things I've grown to be less fearful of. It's my original fear, right? So it's about being caught unawares. It's about taking them by surprise, and because I've taken them by surprise, they attack me, and my surprise reaction will create the response in them to attack me. So it's like a lose-lose-lose, total spiral of doom, right? Total miscreation of compassion, so a sphere of fear. And again, Ian came out with sphere of fear as well. So let's take this back to what this is really about, which in my opinion is, if I can remember what I called this, it's moving from being God-fearing to God-loving, the sphere of fear, Adam and Eve, and the misconception of original sin. So, the Lover's card in the tarot deck you kind of see the Adam and Eve story and the tree, and this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Bear with me. Now, if you know my coaching work, you know that I work with fertility, right? And I also work with empowering people to take charge of their lives, to basically co-create the reality that they want, and also to have enjoyable pregnancies and better births. Hello Turgay, welcome, welcome. Please bear with me, this does all make sense. So, it's quite funny, according to my friend Mel, who was communicating with me in the early hours. She said, it's so ironic that you are so terrified of such a phallic symbol, really, which it is, because if you know my work, you'll know I talk about the fact that sexual energy, fertile energy and creative energy are all the same. So when I'm dealing with someone who's blocked fertility-wise, I know I've got to look at sexual shame. I know I've got to look at where they're at in their lives, how happy they are, because it's all related, right? So what I couldn't understand was basically why this snake had showed up. You know, snake amongst in the grass, this kind of sense of having to have your wits about you, that things aren't all as they seem, blah, blah, blah. And then it suddenly hit me after I got Mel's message yesterday. I was like, Adam and Eve. Okay. Valentine's Day. Okay. This is the story of moving beyond the concept of original sin. What's the concept of original sin? Why did we fall from grace? What happened? Oh, okay. Eve, now, anyone who is religious, anyone who knows the creation story better than me, I'm so open to whatever you've got to say about this. I'm not saying I've got it right. This is my interpretation, my understanding. Hopefully it expands a view. But my understanding is that some sects of Christianity feel that women are basically expected to have difficulties in their pregnancies and difficult births and potentially lots of conceptions, which means potentially lots of miscarriages before falling pregnant long term. So difficulties with being pregnant and having babies, because this is a punishment for listening to the serpent, to temptation, and actually eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, from what I read yesterday, because I was reading someone's interpretation of Genesis, and I'll put the link in terms of these sections of the Bible, and what's interesting is the Hebrew word for pain and toil is the same, and yet the wording used about Adam and the wording used about Eve are actually different. Thank you. So when it's talked about women and conception and birth, it was about pain. When it's talked about men, it's that they would have to toil more. Adam would have to toil more. He'd have to work harder than he was supposed to. That was intended because he'd eaten from this tree. Now, the serpent obviously is the temptation that was like, don't you want to know? Aren't you curious? But women have been scapegoated. Eve has been scapegoated for basically either passively agreeing to go along with it and not talking Adam out of it. Who knows? Thanks, keep going with this, Rochelle, keep me going with this, okay? And yeah, basically what has happened is that the judgments, the blame that came from God as written, as understood, is that man would toil more, and that women would basically have to have more conceptions and toil harder in life, basically have more pain with childbirth, etc. These were consequences, and there was something else. I didn't write it all down in the middle of the night, so just bear with me. Yes, this was the consequence of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They fell from grace, they became mortal. So that's what this was about. So the original creation story, obviously there are different takes on this, but as my teacher has shared it with us, Rosanna Kennedy, this planet was meant to be a paradise planet. It was a place that we were meant to come and to embody our soul light in human physical form, and to learn to co-create consciously in alignment with God, yeah, with the divine, the reality that we want to experience. And my understanding of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is basically that what that did was, eating from that would mean that we moved out of unity consciousness whilst in our physical form, and we moved into a perception of duality consciousness, so good and bad, this is good, this is bad, rather than all is one. And as a result of that, where the pain really comes from, where the distortions come from, the toiling, the expectation of pain, and therefore the result of it, is the fact that suddenly we had this dual consciousness, and the mental body, if you think about people, you think about mental health, you think about people who suffer from anxiety, depression, anything like that, it's the mental body that causes all the pain, it's all the stimulation in the head, right? So this is where judgment actually goes on. It's in the head. Whereas when we're in unity consciousness, we're in the heart. We were co-creating with the divine. We were here to co-create for the highest good of all. When we decided to take from this tree of knowledge, we basically started to co-create from our own consciousness, which is a lower consciousness without the divine consciousness, because we separated. If you ate from that tree, it caused a separation. So this is where I go from the God-fearing to God-loving. The way this has all been interpreted is that basically we should fear God, because God will punish you and God will judge you. But my understanding of this, from what I've read, is actually that what God did was he basically said, look, I can't protect you from this. If you eat from this, then that's what's going to happen. That's the consequence of that. And part of that consequence also is going to be that despite the fact that a woman has a much harder time because she's got more children to bring up and she has a difficult time in childbirth, she's still going to desire her husband. She's still going to want you. She's still going to desire you. That desire, this is the bad thing about desire, is going to be what keeps causing her suffering, because it's going to leave her pregnant again and again with more children to look after. Also, if you are mortal, you're having to have more children to guarantee the continuation of your genes, right? To guarantee survival. Whereas when we were here meant to be in divine form, we would co-create a next generation child through synthesizing the best of us. Hey Courtney, welcome. Hey Sinrose. This is a long one, sorry, but it's important because the epiphanies have come from the snake fear. So it all comes into this place where she's going to still desire him, even though she keeps having babies, and this is hard work for her, because now she's not immortal. She has to have more babies to make sure they survive, whereas before she could just create a perfect baby and that would be that, and she didn't have to. It was just something that could happen. Now, you look at the fertility issues on the planet, and you look at the fact that most people are having less children, and we're having to get really, really healthy and really well, which is what my Conceive with Ease program is, in mind, body, spirit, and soul, and heart, that's the one, emotion, to be able to bring in these high frequency souls that are coming in. So we're all having less children and higher frequency children, so they're more sensitive. They can't just be packed off to do what everyone else does. That's what we're doing. Welcome everybody who's joining. Bear with me. So coming back to this original sin thing and to Adam and Eve and moving from God-fearing to God-loving, it all makes sense. Basically, the other side of this, which is what has basically profligated the whole patriarchal paradigm, is that not only would all these things happen to Eve, and Adam would have a harder time with life because he was going to have to work hard now because he was separate from God, so he wasn't getting God's help to co-create with grace and ease. Not because God was forcing it, but because Adam had chosen it. This is again the consequence of misunderstanding something, not understanding something. And then he will also look down on Eve. He will basically not realise that she and he are God as one. It's only through their union being in balance that they co-create in harmony, and they make the energy of the divine, because the divine masculine and the divine feminine are one. They are what births the divine child. Right, there's that bit. Going back to the snake I saw, Valentine's Day, this particular prayer and what it's all about, and the fact that if we are in paradise, we have to truly face our fears. If you want to co-create paradise on earth again, so to move from duality consciousness back into unity consciousness, you are going to need to love up your fears. I've had to get really into the understanding that if I'm going to be here, I have to embrace the fact that there are snakes here. And actually, the more I focus on them coming to harm me, the more I'm creating an energy, whereas I can actually totally shift this energy and just push the energy around so that they're going away from me, that I don't see them, and also that even if I do, they're scared of me, they're just garden snakes, there's nothing to fear. Like, the more I was feeding the fear, the more fear stories I was hearing. The more I move into trust and just recognise that they have every right to be here, as does any other creature, they just don't need to bother me, right? So for me to stay, I had to overcome the fact that I didn't feel I deserved to be here because things were too easy. I had to overcome how I was going to get to stay here in the future, like what was actually going to happen. I had to just trust in my bigness, and also I had to accept that every layer that we clear, there is a deeper layer until we get to these core, deep-rooted, it's the reptilian brain, and it's the autonomic system, okay? This is all way beyond your conscious control. It's just there. It's from the time your cells were dividing that you're taking all of this energy in, these fears in, and the things that are irrational to you. So I felt like what happened through the last 24 hours after 5 days of being in absolute mental agony, like mental torture, fear and physical fear because of everything that was coming up, was to come to this understanding that we have misperceived what God meant and how it has been written that we are, as a consequence of our ignorance and going against the word, we have been eternally punished. We believe we deserve punishment, and there's a couple of things I did write that are important here. So, doing something wrong by accident and being eternally punished. Like, those of us who are seeking to grow, those of us who are seeking to move into this path of really being conscious co-creators of our reality, we know that we have to take absolute responsibility for everything around us, the conscious creations and the miscreations, the things that we created through our focus being where we don't really want it to be. And, you know, for me, as I've been growing in my bigness, so experiencing more and more success in what I do, I've had to keep stepping up into another level of me and to get comfortable there. And of course that brings fear, right? So all of it is, can I maintain this? Can I sustain this? Am I good enough for this? Have I done something wrong that I didn't realise? And every time something good happens, there's that fear of fucking it up, right? So today I had an amazing meeting with a phenomenal woman who is doing something amazing on this island, and I tell you no lie, it is what I have been seeing in my visions for the last 2 years. The stuff that's happened with Ian since he came into my life, since I did Co-Creation Success, I created that program from a dream, I hosted it. Through the time I was hosting it, I had the biggest breakthroughs that I've had in the last 20 years, and certainly the last 5. Put me into a completely different ball game, in a completely different scenario with someone whose intention is to help build my dreams. And I'm here on a paradise island discussing a retreat centre space that's being opened, and the visions I've been having that have been coming since that big crystal I bought. I don't know if you remember the celestite, like I was getting visions to buy that, and that was coming out the water, and I described the bay. This lady was laughing at me today. She's like, well, this is how it's laid out. And I was like, right, that's what I've been seeing. And it's all tying in. But this is an island that is very deeply honouring of the Christian faith, and I've had this fear of people who are God-fearing because I'm God-loving. You know, I've had this fear of whether I'm going to be accepted here, whether my understanding of our connection to God and to Christ is going to be welcomed, if people want to let go of the skin of fear that they hold and to actually recognise that the suffering that they constantly put themselves through is the result of their own misperceptions, both of original sin, or the original sin and how it was interpreted to us, and also of their own experiences. Because if you think about what sin means, the way I've understood it, I've got lots of Christian people around me, is that you're aiming for something and you miss the mark. But the way sin is interpreted, and you talk about someone being sinful, is that they're doing this deliberately, right? They're deliberately disobeying the word, right? Disobeying the word of God. And what I've actually said in the poem is, it's the trying to understand things that causes the suffering. We can just choose to feel safe in our skin. We don't need to understand why. But we have to understand why. Our mental body, there's a part of the process that we go back into as we reunificate with the divine, is we become separate. We learn what it's like to co-create from our ego, which is to co-create from fear, which is what we've been doing on this planet for thousands of years. And then we choose to move beyond that and to access our higher heart. Only way to God is through Jesus Christ, that's said. So through the cross, through the centre of the cross, the heart, the only way to source is through the heart. We move out of the ego magnet. We pull the magnetic sun down through our solar plexus and through our hearts. We inform all of our connection to the earth and above through the crystalline grid and through the human heart grid and through the etheric grid. And we basically raise the consciousness. We all become one. And through that oneness, please forgive me if I sound completely balmy now, you know, that's how we come back to bringing this paradise to this planet, the paradise codes back to this planet. We each seed it in ourselves, but we have to go through the valley of doubt. We have to go through the dark night of the soul. These are all archetypes that really are about us facing our own shadow and loving up our own shadow. I had to really stand up for the me that was super scared of the snakes, and I also had to have a conversation with every part of me in my head and be like, really? Is this going to prevent you? Yeah, that's right, exactly. Sin is supposed to be on purpose, but it's not. We have misinterpreted so much of the word, even if the word came direct. Like Christ, ultimately a massive rebel who was anti-establishment and basically bringing in a whole new energy, and then he's killed, and then the establishment takes on his message, distorts it, and that's what we have as the various different interpretations amongst truths of our connection to God. It blows me away. Anyway, I'm really, when I say all of this, I'm going to share the prayer again, seeking to remind myself of all of these connections, because when you do become aware of the sphere of compassion around you, and you realise that your perception of reality, your outer world, is constantly mirroring to your inner world. I had to become aware of my fear of a snake in the grass, my fear of being persecuted, my fear that all isn't as good as it seems. I had to understand how doubt, which is the poison of the snakes under our skin. Now, for me, snakes have positive and negative connotations, but the poison's the doubt. How the poison erodes your ability to co-create in alignment with God, because what God asks you to do is to trust him, right? Says, go do this. It's don't question it, just do it. When I was told to go buy the crystal, this was a sign for me. Don't question it, just do it. Why do I need this crystal? Oh, only because it's got the blueprint of your divine blueprint and your codes for what you're meant to be doing here. I didn't know that at the time. I just had to go with it, right? And, you know, when we seek to understand, so we make ourselves subservient. Actually, we lessen ourselves, we go into lessened consciousness by seeking to understand, because we try and utilize a very limited part of us, the brain, the perception of human thought, to understand the divine, the one, the ultimate. It's insane. You can't do it. If you remember you are God, and again, this isn't meant to be blasphemous, this is about understanding that divine spark. We are made in his image. We are all co-creators of our reality. When we access that information, that love light, then we are able to co-create with love rather than through fear. And we can co-create and seek win-win-win scenarios all the time. This means aligning with grace. This is what RozyGlow is. I only found out yesterday that Anna means grace of God. And my name is Rosanna, pink Grace, RozyGlow. I only knew I was channeling Grace 2 years ago. You know, RozyGlow was created 5. You just have to trust. So the message is trust. Ashley mentioned heritage and anchor so many times today. These words have been coming up. You've just got to believe it. You've just got to believe it. Everything you believe that you can create, everything you conceive, you can achieve. You can achieve if you believe you can, right? That's what it comes to. So I'm going to read the prayer one more time, and then I've actually got to go because I've got a meeting with my teacher before this evening's coaching. I hope you found all of this interesting. If I've got anything, I'm going to put it in the comments, because like my reconnecting with this concept of original sin and understanding that God wasn't punishing or judging. He was just saying, dude, if you do that, I'm not going to be able to have a direct line with you. Okay? I'm not going to be able to guide you and support your co-creations to be for the highest good of all. You're going to be doing this blind. And what's so funny, since I've been here, my third eye's felt closed. It's felt blocked. I've been thinking it's the water, I don't know. But anyway, fascinating. So, here we go. Hopefully, now I've shared all of that, this makes more sense. Good afternoon, diamonds. How do I get out of a sphere of fear? Sometimes you just have to pop it with a needle to make it disappear, the sword of truth. The needle of determination gets straight to the point. I had to be determined to overcome this, to get under the skin of the snakes we perceive lie within us and cause us to feel deceived. All the time, we allow their poison to wriggle within. We succumb to our fears and misperceptions of sin and what is real in a paradigm of pain and toil, created by design to bring us all eventually back into union consciousness with the divine. All that is needed to make the switch is to let go of the idea we must be punished for our sins, to remember we have done nothing wrong, But the desire to understand causes suffering. No need to know, just to feel safe within. There is no need to know, just to feel safe within. I am shedding my fear skin. I am safe in my power. I am that I am. I'm sure I missed a line. I'm going to go one more time. Hopefully you'll hear more in it. But this is this whole thing, like, I had to face the snake fear to come to understand the misperceptions that were preventing me from being able to step fully into my power and to keep saying yes to the moving beyond the glass ceiling now of the fourth dimension into that 5D, well and truly, like, embedded, supporting the others to come up. Good afternoon, Diamonds. How do I get out of a sphere of fear? Sometimes you just have to pop it with a needle to make it disappear. The needle of determination gets straight to the point, to get under the skin of the snakes we perceive lie within us and cause us to feel deceived. All the time we allow their poison to wriggle within. We succumb to our own fears and misperceptions of sin. Remember, it's not on purpose sin. And of what is real in a paradigm of pain and toil, created by design to bring us all eventually back into union consciousness with the divine. All that is needed to make the switch is to let go of the idea we must be punished for our sins, to remember we have done nothing wrong, but the desire to understand causes suffering. No need to know, just to feel safe within. There is no need to know, just to feel safe within. Trust. I am shedding my fear skin. I am safe in my power. I am that I am. So that was written firstly by Ian, dissected by me at 3 in the morning, finalised at 8, I think, maybe a bit later, and sent out. There's a lot in it, okay? What I will say is that I know a lot of you have been going through some really, really deep detoxing recently, and Rochelle, I'm really pleased to see you here today. I know you've been through a lot. And, you know, when I've created a program called Fearless, Empowered and Free to Be Me, and then I'm shitting it over a blinking garden snake, you can imagine what a bruise to my ego that is. But essentially, as Ian said today, he just blew me away. He just held my arms. He was just like, you're allowed to feel vulnerable, you know, it's okay. Because I'm like, I'm failing miserably here. I am scared of snakes. I can't stick this out. I can't do this. I can't live up to this. Like, this is really preventing me moving forward. And he's like, I got you, babe. Don't worry. It's okay. You know, I love you. I'll protect you from the snakes. I'm a big bloke. I don't feel scared of this shit. I'll deal with it. It's okay for you to be scared. Carry on. You're still an amazing, powerful, phenomenal force. And you know, that, hearing that, that's love. That is, blew me away. Blew me away. So my heart is feeling so huge right now. Divine grace, I want to remind you, is the power of revelation, which I have just had after 5 days of being in the valley of doubt. And, you know, the dark night of the soul, this particular dark night. We all have different dark nights, and I don't want to belittle the other dark nights that people are having, because this is minor in comparison with a lot of other people's stuff, but for me it was huge, right? And, yeah, it's the power of revelation. It is the ability to let go easily of what no longer serves you. Fear. Yeah, let it go. I've let it go as easily as I can. Today I was so much better walking up and down the stairs and basically just getting there, right? I'm getting there. Patience and love. And then the other identity with grace, when we open to grace, which to me comes as a soft pink flame, is that we're opening to the gifts that are freely given to us. This connection to source, to the divine. When you intend the highest good of all and you allow yourself to succumb to divine will, This is not about giving yourself up. Yes, it's the death of your ego. Yes, it's the death of your fears, motivating your decision making. But it's the birth of love guiding every action you take. It is the birth of inspiration guiding every waking moment of your life. It is the gift of feeling you're here on purpose, doing something wonderful, even in your suffering, even in the challenges you go through. You master what you need to. You succumb to God, to the God within you. You succumb to the force greater than you. You say, look, I don't get this. This is bigger than me. I'm willing to take counsel. What do I need to know here? What do I need to do? I don't even need to know. Just show me. And that's where you give birth to your divine self. That's where you give birth to the divine consciousness that makes you a conscious co-creator of your reality. And that is what I feel I've been guided to come here to anchor. So the idea of bringing retreats and teacher trainings here and supporting people to come and live in this energy, and then to take that back with them and to seed that wherever they are, whatever they do. Feeling super emotional, super blessed, super happy. I love you all. Thank you so much for everybody who listens now and everybody who takes this in later, and I hope I haven't offended you. If I've triggered you, that's cool. Go into that, see what it brings up for you. I love you. I'm not trying to be a cow. I'm just well on the mission to bringing everybody in my sphere of influence into an awareness of what unity consciousness is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, Ewing, it was lovely to see you. Who was that? It's Rena. Thank you, darling. Lots of love from paradise. Take care. Bye.